Well, hello there, gorgeous souls. I am Chloe the Elven Mage. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Shop Chats. So if you haven't already, I invite you to join me with your favourite beverage of choice. Yes, I am still thoroughly enjoying my Christmas cat mug. It is very cold here today in northwest Oxfordshire in the UK. It looks and feels like it could snow. So I am having a coffee to give me that warmth, to give me that little bit of a buzz, to get me through these cold days. So wherever you are in the world, I invite you to join me and I will say cheers. So feel free to pause the video now if you're not there already. Meet me in the coffee shop of Mystic Hearts. Cheers. So we will be exploring in the kind of classic coffee shop style today, where I've done a little bit of preliminary research for the chat, but this will mainly be channeled and sharing, and it's going to be also a little bit of a workshop style. So we'll be interacting and doing things together. For those of you who are new, welcome. So Coffee Shop Chats is a intimate style space where I combine my own life experiences in a way that is safe, but in a way that is sharing, like we are best friends in a cozy coffee shop, having a deep and meaningful discussion with the underlying message of healing, activation, empowerment, transformation, and perhaps just to expand your heart and open up your perception. Who knows? I'd love to know what your intention is for coming here today, and thank you for being here with me too. And so today's coffee shop chat is going to be all around self-love. Thank you to those of you who voted in the poll. There was two options for this week's coffee shop chat and I just couldn't decide. So thank you for helping me to decide today on a self-love masterclass. Now, I was very strongly guided, before I decided that I was going to do this week, I was very strongly guided that this self-love masterclass was going to be in two parts. So I will be doing a part 2, and oftentimes there may be this perception of self-love as this like really sensual, feminine, like taking long baths and like rubbing rose petals all over our body and holding hands and all of that stuff, which is fab if that is what you're into. But I'm sorry to break it to you, but self-love is really a byproduct of self-awareness. So you may have already, your spidey senses may already be tingling, and the main process that we're going to be going through today is going to be a lot of shadow work. So the reason why, okay, so we are going to do part 2. So just to let you know, once you get through this, you'll get to that like fluffy, fun, sensual, sexy, whatever it may be stuff. But in order to get there, there's parts of ourselves that we've got to be real with. One of the qualities of the heart is truth and authenticity. And something that really helps me and has helped me in the past with this is when we think of the possibilities of the heart and the energy of the heart, you know, the love and the infinite realms of the heart, the chasms of the heart. When we think of that in the beauty sense, the beautiful sense, there has to be a shadow side. There is with everything. It's duality. It is balance and order. So when we think about the extreme beautiful qualities of love and of the heart and the healing qualities of the heart, if we choose, could be wise for us to also consider the depth of the heaviness of the dark side of the heart. So the grief, the pain, the sadness. And in order to really feel that love and feel that self-love, we've got to love the bits that we don't love or the bits that we hide from. And unless we choose to address our shadows, and unless we choose the path of self-awareness or self-love through self-awareness, we can't love ourselves, because we are pretending to love ourselves, or, you know, we are having fake friendships or fake relationships. We are hiding from our full selves. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So those of you who've seen coffee shop chats before, I do a bit of research and I get these questions or these kind of popular trending bullet points, and I talk through them and share a little bit of my own experiences along that. But then after that, we're also going to do some like practical fun things together. So it's going to be a big one. Look, I've got my pen, I'm ready. So if you're into this as I am, grab a pen and paper. What I will say is a little bit of a trigger warning for this talk today. Because of the nature of love, what does this cover so much? Specifically relationships, childhood traumas, relationships with our parents and ancestral patterns. It covers a pretty broad spectrum of what we could put under the umbrella of trauma. So if you don't feel comfortable or in the right frame of mind or the right space to receive me talking about topics of sexual abuse, childhood trauma, then maybe come back to this at a later date. What I will say is this is not a space for me to trauma dump. I am not going to be going into gory details of my own trauma, but what I do want to do is just very lightly summarize experiences that I've been through. Number one, just to show you that I don't hold shame around them anymore. But number two, to help you to relate to perhaps any stories or patterns that you may be yet to witness or really sit with within yourself. So it's not to shock, it's not to scare, and it's not to dump my crap onto you. It's none of that. And it's not going to be super in detail. But I just want to give that warning, because if this is just not something that you're ready to receive right now, then yeah, come back again, or skip to part 2 and start doing some of those practices and then come back. Today is going to be a lot more practical and with some exercises, and then part 2 will be a lot more ritualistic and all of those like rituals and practices we can do to like pour and devote ourselves in the honey of self-love. But we've got to get through the stickiness of the mud first of all. And for that, I'm going to have a little sip of coffee. And just to let you know, before recording this video, I set up a safe space. Obviously, I do that with all of my psychic work, but I felt really called to do it today because I am going to be talking about shadow work and possible traumas and things like that. I just wanted you to know that the energy, my energy and the energy of this video is protected. And if you want to do the same for yourself now, feel free to pause this video and just put a protective bubble around yourself, especially if you're going to really dive deep with me into some of these practices. What we're going to do first is actually give ourselves the opportunity to tap into our heart. So I have a beautiful pagan prayer for you and for myself. Oh, and also before I begin, I just want to say, like, rule 1 of Self-Love Club, like, dress in a way that makes you feel sexy. Black makes me feel like a badass. So that's why I got dressed up for today, not for anyone else, for myself. I am dressing in the way that makes me feel good. I love my makeup. I love the jewelry I'm wearing. This is like my favorite top. So yeah, I'm joking. It's not a rule, but dress in a way that makes you feel good, makes you feel like a badass. I would say it can be quite good to dress on the edge of your comfort zone. On the edge of your comfort zone. So something if you're like, oh, that's like a bit too gothic or a bit too sexy or oh, a bit too smart. People, heaven forbid, people might take me too seriously. I feel like that's a sign of, yes, now we're getting somewhere, getting to that edge of tiptoeing into the realms of discomfort. Yeah, and I'm wearing more and more and more black these days and more winged liner. Yeah, and just more bold gothic jewelry. It just makes me feel good, and I don't care how I look to other people. The more you do it, the more it will become like your uniform that just feels good. Someone commented on one of my videos recently with what I perceived to be an attempt at trying to dim my light. They said, because I was saying about spiritual stereotypes, and they were like, oh, don't you think the way that you dress all mystical is a spiritual stereotype? And I was just like, I dress in a way that makes me feel like a badass, and that is not a stereotype. Anyway, they didn't reply, so moral of the story, do what makes you feel good. If you've been told to do something different to what makes you feel good, still follow what makes you feel good. Only your heart knows, only your inner child knows best. And that is like the compass of self-love. All right, let's get to this prayer. I invite you to join me. If you want to have your hands in prayer or cupping, cradling your heart, I invite you to meet me here. Taking some deep breaths. And just continue breathing and focusing on your heart. Mother, Father, Goddess, God, we now choose to move from our heads and deeply into our hearts. We connect to our love of self, the sacred room of the heart, which holds the memory of the divine within us. As we sit calmly in the heart center and feel the expansive energy of love, we choose to cleanse ourselves of selfishness, resentment, criticism, jealousy, frustration, and misunderstanding. And from the center of our hearts, we choose to bathe ourselves in love, praise, appreciation, kindness, and gratitude. Of course, gratitude. Self-acceptance, contentment, and an enlightened understanding of our life experiences. And so it is. And if it's safe for you to hold your breath, I invite you to take a deep breath in through your nose with me. Holding that breath if you can for 20 seconds or just as long as you can, keeping your mental awareness and every level of your awareness on your heart, and set the desire to really connect into your heart, maybe feeling the rhythm or the beating of your heart, feeling, hearing, seeing, connecting to, opening, whatever you choose. As you hold that breath, and then exhaling. Continuing to breathe deeply and slowly. Feeling that beautiful rhythm of love in the center of your chest. May my heart be open to share kindly and authentically from my heart, and may all those hearts who receive the messages in this video today be open to receive that which is in service of their highest good at this time. So I hope you enjoyed that, and in part 2 there will be more practices, more different practices on opening up or just connecting inwards to your heart. So what I like to say to people is, like, if you've tried one thing and you don't vibe with it, try 10 other things, because there's some practices that I don't enjoy and many that I do, and it's all about exploring and being playful. Remember, we're finding what brings you joy. Sometimes in the beginning of changing our habits, it can feel perhaps a little bit like we are doing something that we don't want to do, because it's pushing against the programming of the mind. But if it really is something that really does not feel in any way enjoyable, I really would advise you to see if there's something you can shift or change in your practice, whatever that may be. And it could be something so small and simple to make it more joyful and enjoyable for you. Enjoy. We want to be in joy with as many things that we do in life as possible. Cheers to that. So, here we go. The down and dirty, sticky, icky parts of self-love, which really, really begins with our self-awareness. I love that saying, which is like, you can only meet others as deeply as you've met yourself. And that for me is just like up there with one of the best sayings, because it is so true. So true. And yeah, it's an ongoing process. Something also that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the trigger warning, I also want to just share and express that I have been on a path of self-awareness, doing the shadow work and peeling back these layers for at least 10 years now. So if you're only just starting on this journey, like, I am cheering you on, but please don't compare yourself to me. It takes so long Okay, it is life's work. And yes, that can feel super overwhelming, but it just is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah, just be kind to yourself on the journey, and wherever you're at, it's okay. So the goal of today, the goal of this video, our self-love masterclass part 1, is to discover our story and then rewrite that story. I'm just looking down now because I've already written some notes. Pippin, my cat, is becoming hopeful. I'm like, no, I need to concentrate. Are you going to be good? Let's see how we get on with this. He's sitting on the book that I don't need to use, so that's a good start. All right, it's cuddle o'clock, I think. Hey, you're so beautiful. So, yeah, so where was I? Pippin, so you're too distracting. Your face is just so damn handsome. So, we are discovering our own story, and we are going to do that by briefly going over the top 10 most current causes of lack of self-love in our lives. And this is something that I've reflected on personally, but I've also done a bit of research on the internet just to see, what are the most common and top causes of lack of self-love. And we are going to use these as like a web or a pathway of discovering our own story, our own love story, if you like, and we're going to rewrite it from a story of victimhood to a story of survival, from a story of villain to hero or heroine, which is quite an empowering thing to do. And I actually I haven't done this before in real time, so this is quite exciting for me. I don't know what's going to happen or where it's going to lead. So, yeah, we'll start here and see where this goes. And this may be, you may want to note down the time of where we're beginning this, and you might want to come back to this video, come back to this part in the video where we go through these top 10 causes of lack of self-love, because you may find that you want to just do the first half, and that may be enough for you to digest in one sitting. It's heavy stuff, and if some things do come up for you, then you may just need to take the time to sit with that. And it seems that Pippin just wants to cuddle me while we do this. So here we go. There's a first for everything. So the first of the top 10, so this is number 1, the number 1 cause for lack of self-love, and I totally agree with this, is our childhood experiences / which is what I have injected in here, / lack of support. Childhood experiences / lack of support. So I'm going to break it down to the really obvious to start off with. So our mum and dad stories, our relationships with our mum and dad, the two role models that we have in our life, the role model of the divine masculine and the role model of the divine feminine, basically are the foundation of all of our relationships, because they affect our relationship with ourselves, also our relationship with them, and our relationships that we have with everyone else in our lives. So 100%. This is just so important to reflect. So I'll tell you a little bit about mine. So I've never met my dad. this is something that I am completely comfortable with talking about, but I've never met my dad. He's never been any part of my life. I've never had any contact with him. I have tried to contact him. He left my mum when she was pregnant with me, and basically was just like, I just don't want to be a part of this. If you're choosing to have a baby, then I don't want to be a part of it. So that was that. So no dad and no contact with a father. So just to really briefly summarize that, I, number one, spent my whole life without any role model, and no male role models in my life. My grandfather died before I was born. Single mum, so I only had my mother's side. I only had women around. So no male role model in my life. And you could argue, and this is a very fair point, a great argument, you could argue that having no male role model is still better than having a very toxic or abusive male role model. And I think that's, yeah, you know, there's a lot of weight and value to that point. But from my perspective, not having a father and not having that male role model, what it has meant for me is that, okay, so I was born with an abandonment wound, big one, born with an abandonment wound, which I never realised, you know, until I started doing this self-awareness work. But also, because I never had a male role model, I would always just be desperately seeking love and affection from the masculine, you know, without any kind of guideline on how I should be treated or what that should look like to be in partnership with the masculine. So it was just like, you know, diving into the void with no map. Yeah, so that's a big one to realise for me. Pippin, do you want to go out? If you're going out, you're not coming back in. So that was a big one for me. And then on the flip side of that, then just living with a single mum and the pressures that, you know, that put on her of having to take on both of those roles, it caused a very imbalanced feminine role model too, of strong to the point of controlling and overbearing. So I did feel that all of my decisions and my expression was very much forced and controlled for many years of my life. And also the problem is when you are an only child to a single parent, there are some very unhealthy codependency cords and attachments that you can get entangled in. So yeah, that is my honest reflection on my childhood experiences. So how does this come into lack of love? Well, as I mentioned, the abandonment wound. You know, feeling like people are going to abandon me, but on the flip side of that, like desperately seeking love and attention, especially from the masculine, and not feeling like anything that I do is good enough because my dad doesn't want me. Obviously, I don't feel like this now, but just reflecting of what this means and what it does to us. And then on the flip side of that, from the matriarchal view of being controlling and very judgmental and opinionated, it caused me to really suppress my voice and my expression. But later on, what that suppression caused was a total rebellion and like a total disregard and just a complete going in the other direction. So, you know, even if you're someone who has parents who are still happily married and very much deeply in love, there is a reason for that. And there will be some lesson and some kind of patterning around your childhood. Maybe because your parents, and this, I'm not trying to put words or ideas into your consciousness, I'm just giving an optional perspective. But for example, like, I'm giving the opposite to me. If you're someone, and actually I can speak of this from a relationship perspective, because this does reflect upon one of my exes. If you are someone who has grown up in what we could call, you know, a stable home with parents who are married for long periods of time, what that might cause is a pattern of where we don't feel good enough until we are in that happy marriage, you know, with the picket fence and the children and all of that, all of the sparkles around that. We may never feel like we're good enough until we have that. But what I've also noticed with that, when you feel like, you know, you have parents who are happy, what that can also create is this feeling of like, I don't need to put any effort in. Whereas on my end, it's like survival mode, you know, I have to do everything and overgive. Let me just let Pippin out. You are being naughty. Give it 5 minutes and I bet you anything he will be scratching at my office door again. Yeah, so, you know, I have done and continue to do to this day, that it's not an ending, it's a continual work of peeling back those layers, shining more awareness onto these dark spaces of, you know, my dad leaving me, what that means for me, what that feels like, and then, you know, the relationship that I've had with my mum and all of these things. So I do invite you to consider your childhood growing up and your relationship with your parents and how that has affected your relationship with yourself and how that may have affected your relationship with others. Okay, that's the first one. And that's the big, like, meaty, juicy foundations of self-love through awareness work. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. I've got to finish this coffee because it is way too late in the afternoon for me to be drinking coffee. I'm already like ADHD activated. Okay, so the next one, number 2 of the top 10 causes for lack of self-love is trauma and abuse. Obvious, yes, it may be obvious. And why I wanted to put this on the list and why I wanted to share this is because there is a lot of trauma dumping on the internet. There is a lot of oversharing, and I feel that that can be unhealthy, but there is a way of sharing things safely that, sorry about that. There is a way of sharing things safely in a way that liberates yourself from shame. And this is important because when we're holding on to very heavy, dark vibrations as shame, we can't love ourselves. There's no space for love in there. And shame, oh God, what's that saying? There's this amazing saying that's like, shame's superpower is that it is unspoken. So all we've got to do is speak about the shame. So, and for me, this is something that I feel a little bit uncomfortable sharing, which is a good thing because that means there's still work there to do. And it is also very much intertwined with what I've just shared about my childhood experiences and the lack of relationship to my father figure. And I will share, and again, I'm not going to go into details of this, but I did experience sexual abuse 3 times between the age of 16 and 18 on 3 different experiences. Sexual abuse and rape. I don't know if I can say that in a YouTube video, but here we go. I don't know how many people will see this. I did experience that. And when I went to Peru, when was that? 1.5 years ago, I was in a medicine journey, and the most traumatic of those 3 experiences I replayed in real time in my mind's eye, in my inner vision. And it was one of the most liberating experiences I've ever had in my life, because this is a memory of mine that I've shoved into the dark corners of myself, which have weighed me down like these bags of shame. And by reliving it and really just understanding where I was at the time, but also the dark influences that were surrounding me at that time, I just had so much compassion for an understanding of the experience. And so many men and women and all identities, even animals, are experiences of abuse. And it really saddens me to say this. It doesn't bring me happiness to say this, but it is pretty normal for us to have experienced some form of abuse in our lifetime, even if it's like a family member touching us in an inappropriate way. That is abuse. That is non-consensual sexual touching. So even taking ourselves back and just admitting that these things happen to us can liberate us of shame. But I just want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. However big or however small you feel that this non-consensual invasion of your personal space may be, it is worthy of addressing and feeling and releasing. Tell someone about it. Just tell someone. Be like, hey, I experienced this when I was 14 and it was a long time ago. I thought I was over it, but I just needed to tell someone that you trust. Release that shame. Release that shame, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get love in there. Trauma and abuse can come in many shapes, forms, and sizes. So it's completely dependent on you as an individual. If you need help, reach out to someone who can help you through it. It may be things that you can journal. It may be things, like I said, that you can talk to a dear friend about, or it may be things that you actually need help coaching with, or a therapist. It's up to you to discern the level and the depth of your trauma. Okay. So, the next one, top 10 causes of lack of self-love. Persistent negative self-talk. Yes, this is a very good one, a very strong one, a sneaky one. And the problem with persistent negative self-talk is that it's not ours. It's not even ours to begin with, which is difficult, which can mean that it's working very insidiously against us. And there are very dark forces at work trying to make us believe that we are not worthy of love, trying to make us believe that we are not good enough, trying to make us believe that rest and self-care and self-love are selfish. They are working after hours, 24 hours round the clock against us. So it really does take strength and a matched level of persistence to recognize those thought patterns. And even in the beginning, if you're just like, this isn't me, no, This isn't me. So if you have that voice that's just like, ugh, I can't be bothered to do this today, you can just be like, this isn't me. This isn't me. I don't choose this. And you don't even have to action on the voice. It's the first step is snapping it and being like, this isn't me. I don't choose this. This isn't me. I don't choose this. Those are my power words. And persistent negative self-talk. I'm trying to think what mine is. I mean, I have, through most of my life, far back as I can remember, I have been battling with anxiety, and that is definitely a pattern that I've picked up from my matriarchal line, is this obsessively overthinking about things and like projecting an unrealistic negative outcome into the future. I would say that's been my biggest pattern that I've had to persistently rewire and change within myself. But there's so many, you know, there's some of being like, oh, I'm fat, or oh, I don't look good, or oh, blah, 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 all of this rubbish. And it's about recognizing them. It's difficult for me to share, I would say, my persistent negative self-talk in terms of self-love, because I do feel that at the time of expressing and sharing this video, I feel really good. Like, I do love myself and I'm at a very good level of self-love. I have strong boundaries. I know how to say no to people. I know how to not take things personally. So I would say my persistent negative self-talk that I'm working through at the moment is more around lack and abundance. So I've gone to a deeper level of my self-awareness, to finding like ancestral money wounds and curses and all of that stuff that I'm unraveling. But it's layers. But it's finding those thoughts that are anti-love, and saying, no, this isn't me, I don't choose you. And if you can just begin with that and keep doing that, you're already almost there. And this is something I'm going to share more in part 2, is about creating a 90-day challenge for yourself, but that is small enough that it's realistic. And what happens is, or what can happen as a beautiful side effect of a 90-day challenge, is that when it gets to the end of the 90 days, it's then become a habit or become a lifestyle. So whatever it may be, you know, it could be as simple as, okay, for 90 days, I'm going to choose to replace coffee with decaf coffee, just for an example. I mean, that's silly, but it could be anything. But I'll be sharing more about 90-day challenges in part 2, and about setting realistic goals that are actually going to support us to start building this relationship of trust within ourselves by actually sticking things through and then seeing and feeling the miracles of the benefit of that self-love agreement with ourselves. And that's what we do when we let go of perfectionism, but actually make these realistic agreements. Self-love is discipline. It is, because a lot of us who are lacking love have experienced a life from our upbringing of a lack of boundaries, of overgiving and, taking and left, right and centre, that we have to become this container of a boundary around our love for ourselves. And that does require some discipline, some learning, some honesty, some growing, some self-reflection, self-awareness. You can see where I'm going with this now. Okay, number 5. Oh, and by the way, with perfectionism and unrealistic expectations, I didn't share my own journey around that. I can't say that I've ever been a perfectionist, but what I have experienced with myself is saying that I'm going to do something, this big grand thing, and then not doing it because I get overwhelmed with even the idea of doing it. So scaling it back, and for me, something that has been such a beautiful part of my self-love journey is just allowing things to take however long they take. Now, of course, when it comes to business, I do feel that it's healthy to set time boundaries and time frames, but they can be expanded and they can be changed. Nothing is set in stone, and I feel that allowing that fluidity of change and really releasing those shackles of meanness and constraint that we hold ourselves in and perfectionism is very loving. And the divine feminine, bringing some of that in, of that love and that fluidity and that shift and that change. So yeah, I would say that's for me. I've made these grand goals and these grand schemes, and I've just overwhelmed myself by it and then just given up before I've even attempted to scale it back and make it more bite-sizable in the tasks. And this is why having a mentor can be a godsend, because a mentor can really help you to be like, okay, well, how, if we looked at this for over 12 months, how can we look at it from a day-to-day perspective? Beautiful. And that's another thing to consider with your self-love, with your self-awareness, with your growth journey. Would it be supportive for you to have a mentor that you trust? Something that I would love to do for you if you feel a vibrational match, if you feel aligned. Number 6, bullying and social discrimination. Yeah, big one, big one. I believe that a lot of children who get extremely bullied and ostracized in their childhood can later become the bullies, or choose like a career like being a judge or a police person or a person of justice, where you get to exact your revenge on people out of that vengeance and that frustration and rage that we hold on to from those situations. So absolutely. And I, again, similarly to recalling our childhood memories of our parenting and those early relationships, I would definitely recommend recalling your school experiences and childhood experiences. And I would say, because there's so much that I could talk about and share here, but one of my biggest issues, because this is all around self-love, remember, is when I hit puberty, I got clinical acne to the point where my whole face was inflamed with mountainous acne. Like, for me, being a young woman who went from like being the popular kid in primary school to then all of a sudden getting all of these hormones, putting on weight and getting clinical acne, that was like a death sentence for me. And I didn't feel that I had the support system around me to support me hormonally or with my self-love and self-worth. So I was really alone on that journey, and I did get bullied. I got bullied by like older boys and stuff. So that was just like, oh my God, it was crushing. It was crushing for my sense of beauty and my sense of confidence and self-worth. And it took me a long time to really get over that. And what's really interesting that I'll share with you is that only up until like a year and a half ago, I had this story of being like, I'm just a shy person, I've never been one that's wanted to be the center of attention, it's just me, I'm shy. And that's bullshit. It's all stories, because I know that my inner child, I have this part of me that wants to be like on the stage, performing, being like my most dark, sexy, sensual self. But it was that story that was still playing, where I just felt so crushed by that bullying and by that discrimination and feeling like an ogre. So it's super important to to remember these memories and decide from a sovereign space that we no longer choose this for ourselves. That's where the power, the empowerment comes in. I no longer choose this for myself. And it's not like you're going to wake up one day and it all be gone. It's an ongoing process of choosing your most empowered, confident, beautiful, inspired, magical self. Whatever you choose, those keywords are yours to choose and embody. So that was my most dominant experience of bullying and social discrimination in relationship to self-love. Number 7, relationship issues. So this again is directly connected to my daddy issues. I have had some very abusive, toxic relationships in the past, and of course this knocked down my already low self-esteem down. And what happened then was, because I was in one particular relationship where I was mentally abused and manipulated and imprisoned in the relationship. I wasn't allowed to dress in a certain way. I wasn't allowed to see certain friends. It was that level of manipulative control. And what happens when we experience these relationships is that our whole sense of moral compass, sense of identity, sense of self is totally stripped away from us, because it gets trampled out of us through fear, mind games, control. So it leaves us in this very fragile state where, another person can come in, another manipulator. So it takes a lot of work to recover from relationship issues. And I always say this, but I feel that our romantic relationships are our biggest and deepest shadow work and trigger teachers in our life. What I will say though, and I like to celebrate this, is I look back on my relationships, and of course, like any, there's highs and lows in most of them. I now, upon reflection, would say that I've never been like fully deeply in love. Like I love deeply, like I'm a real lover girl, but I've never fully felt that that soulmate, like devotional love. On reflection, ask me in the relationships and I would have told you differently, but upon reflection, I've never experienced that. And guess what? It's because of the relationship with myself. But what I will say is that looking back on all of those relationships, they have improved one by one. So that's something to celebrate. Celebrate what you learn from your relationships. This isn't all about, regretting the past and looking back on the past. Celebrate what you've learned, how you've grown, what you don't put up with anymore. And if you're in a relationship, beautiful. Don't always just focus on the difficult times. Celebrate the good. Allow more space in for joy. So that's mine. Obviously the toxic relationship definitely stripped away my sense of worthiness when it came to what I now expect and know that I deserve, just for the mere fact of being a woman, that I deserve in a relationship. But all of that was stripped away from me, and it's taken me a long time to come to that sense of self-worth within myself, to know that. And I won't settle for anything less now. Number 8, mental health struggles. Huge one. Huge one. Huge. And I can do a whole coffee shop chat on mental health issues, but for me, particularly, what I would say is a cause of lack of self-love for me was my addiction issues. And why this is important for me to share here is because we use our addictions to mask our emotional pain. So all of these things that we've already been going through, that we've already been talking about, our addictions can be used to actually mask those. So we hide away from facing these wounds. So yeah, a big one for me. I would drink and take drugs because I just got to the point where I was like, I can't express myself. I don't know who I am anymore. This is my escape. This is my false sense of confidence. But of course, it does the complete opposite, where actually it dampens and masks and hides the true expression of who we are. And not to mention, when we are under the influence of chemical substances, we are lowering our vibration, and therefore either consciously or subconsciously or both inviting in influences of a lower vibration, which can often end up in possession, entity attachment, and things that we're probably not even aware of at the time, that really have that ongoing and long-going effect on us, and can often be the reason why we do things that we would never ever normally do in our highest self state, in our true self. I have spoken about this before, so I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I had this amazing revelation when I realized that for me, on my path in this lifetime, that for me to thrive and live my fantastical life and live my dream life, that I cannot drink alcohol at all. Like, it cannot be a part of my life. And it's been a journey. I am sober now, by the way. But yeah, the realization was, this is a part, and this is beautiful because this is a part of my self-love journey, of a self-awareness exercise. There was something within me, this inner yearning, my intuition, maybe it was my higher self working with me at the time. I wasn't connected to my guides and my higher self then as I am now. This was about 7 years ago. Yeah, seven, maybe 8 years ago. I felt this inner urge to write down as many experiences as I could recall that brought me feelings of shame, guilt, or regret. And guess what? Every single one of those experiences were experienced under the influence of alcohol and or drugs. And I would say like 90% of those experiences were related to sexual encounters or uncomfortable, dangerous situations that I had found myself in. So that was a big, big key for me. One of my keys for self-love and self-devotion is to stop drinking alcohol. And not because it's to blame for my misdemeanors and my mistakes, but it's for me saying that I'm not going to do that to myself anymore is like the biggest love letter to myself, and setting myself free from the chains of that and just letting my true self shine through. And I truly believe that there's like different keys for each of us. For some of us, it could be changing our environment or changing the way we eat. Drinking alcohol is probably a big one for a lot of people, especially if you choose to be a healer or follow the path of holding others. It can be quite a common one. So yeah, and that's around mental health struggles, and why I feel that right now on this current human earth timeline, why mental health struggles are such a key one on our self-love journey is because we are in the mental age. So we are in the age of the mind. So we are in this you could argue, a highly advanced, intelligent, fast-moving, scientific, technological society. However, I believe that there are also timelines where we are totally in the heart and metaphysically advancing way beyond our mental what we can actually perceive now through our mind is we can actually go way beyond where we are as a species through our hearts and through our magic and through energy. But anyway, we are in this age of where we are like really advancing things quickly, and you know, there's the shadows and the advantages to that. I'm very much like, I see the good and the bad in all things. But we are in this age of being in the mind, you know, where intelligence is revered and celebrated. And when we think about to our ancestors and big time periods in the past, a lot of it was external, you know, like fighting and wars and battles and survival and physical fitness. It was very external, you know, the struggles and the battles. And now that battle is in the mind, and that is the mental health struggle, and it makes it so much more isolated on this journey. And this is even more why I feel that I want to make these videos and voice these issues and these journeys externally, to hold a space where that's my throat being like, yeah, throat activation, voice activation, to create this space where it feels like we're not alone. We don't have to do this alone, because the mind can feel like this mental cage, and the dark forces, they can control our mind. They can control our mind through TV programming, adverts, news articles, the government, everything, everywhere you look, everything you breathe, everything you eat, even our food, sadly, is poisoned with chemicals. So yeah, there's, you know, it's a battlefield around here. So we've got to calm back into this strength of the mind. And this is another reason why I say self-love begins with self-awareness. And those choices that we make for ourselves bring us back into a space of sovereignty. And when I started on my sobriety journey, you know, it was a difficult time for me, because I did feel ostracized from certain social groups, certain friendships dissolved. And obviously now I recognize and realize that that's just a part of life. You know, some relationships and people have a very short time span, and that's the way it's written, that's the way it's meant to be. Yeah, and just being more flexible with that. But yeah, it's tough when we start putting our own morals and our own best interests first. It can ruffle and disgruntle people around us. And again, it's like keeping that warrior strength, that internal warrior strength. I've always really felt connected to Isis and Mother Isis, and I remember pulling a card recently, and this has really stuck with me. And the card was like, take moments whenever you can of closing down your eyes and just saying, I am here today to worship at the temple of the divine wisdom within me. And that is such an empowering statement that it just shifts everything from like allowing external influence to have a hold over you and coming back into that point of being like, no, do you know what? I'm not going to eat that Mars bar because I know it's full of toxic chemicals. It's not organic. There was probably slave labor used to create it. The packaging is made from plastic. All of these things, okay? It's a journey. It's a journey to allowing ourselves to have the audacity to love ourselves so much that we raise our standards to the highest degree. And guess what? It's not just for ourselves. It's for the love of the highest good of all, for the love of the highest good of the earth. It's for the love of the highest good of the highest frequency and love and light and healing and awakening and activation of all beings. So ironically, by choosing to love ourselves so deeply, we're actually choosing to love the higher vibrations of the earth, but all vibrations too, because again, by doing this work and this journey of shadow work and self-awareness, we're choosing to love the deepest, darkest depths of ourselves, and therefore we can actually be open to accept the deepest, darkest places of others and of the world and of the universe from a sense of compassion and understanding. And those are two beautiful qualities of the heart, as well as courage. Courage. Think of all of your favorite heroes and heroines, you know, whether you're into like cartoons, sci-fi, fantasy, they all have to go through some kind of dark, harrowing, awful times to get to be who they are, you know, to complete their hero's journey. And I feel that we all have our own hero, heroine journey to become the main character of our highest self. And we've got to have that inner warrior strength starting in the mind, peace of the mind, strength of the mind, inner warrior. And then we can step into that best part of ourselves. I think I missed one actually. I'm getting a bit confused because I don't know if you've noticed this, but this video is a little bit choppy. I've had a few issues, one of those being Pippin earlier, and the other one I ran out of space on my computer. So it's been like test after test. How much am I going to love myself to breathe and let go and just keep on going? So I may have repeated a few things. Apologies for that, but repetition is always good. But I feel that I've missed one of the points, and we've got two more. I'm just going to touch back on another one because it's something that was coming to me when I was thinking about doing this self-love masterclass. And that is social comparison and social media. So it is the popularization of sheep mentality, but then also on that, running parallel to that, cancel culture. So cancelling any opinion, instantly shutting down anyone who doesn't fit the status quo, or who doesn't fit the narrative of the argument, the current argument, or the current enemy, the current wrong, the current right. Ooh, and there is just something so icky about that. And there's something so programmed and controlled and manipulative about that behavior to me that just reeks insidious influence. So influence from dark forces, maybe, you know, entities and possessions and things like that. But yeah, I've completely deactivated my Instagram account. I'm still in two minds if I'm going to just come off entirely or start fresh. But yeah, I've just felt for a long time now that, you know, I just go and open the application and it's 1,000 different people telling you why you're wrong, what you're doing wrong, and how you should be. And to me, that is not empowering. It's not celebrating. It's not inclusive, it's not compassionate, it's controlling, and it's very in the head and egotistical. So I've really had to take a step back and just be like, I don't feel comfortable in that space anymore. And also, you know, the trolling, I get it. You know, as soon as I speak my truth, someone has to come in and try and raise my vibration. And of course, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but there is something toxic beneath the surface of it that I'm still trying to find my truth in. I just find YouTube at the moment to be slightly better because it's just more of an open platform where you can search for what it is that you're seeking, whereas Instagram is like you're just fed what you don't want. And then we have, of course, the false beauty standard of celebrities and the plastic era, the era of plastic surgery. So young people are growing up not even knowing what it is to look normal. And do you know what's so strange? Like, I love movies that are made from like 90s or earlier. For one reason, because you watch them and it's like, oh my goodness, like no one has had any cosmetic augmentation. It's like, wow, everyone looks so natural and so fresh and so normal. And it's like, oh my goodness, a breath of fresh air. And then now it's like, you don't know how old people are. You don't know what ethnicity they are naturally. It's like this stripping away of our authenticity. And everyone is beautiful. Beauty shines from within. And again, this self-awareness and the self-love takes us back to that, because real beauty shines from within. And the more we love ourselves, the more that we want ourselves to look and feel beautiful. And there are ways to make yourself look beautiful and radiant without having to go under the knife or change yourself. And please, 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 anyone who is watching this, I do not judge you. I do not judge you if you have changed yourself aesthetically in any way. I do not judge you. It's totally your choice and your body to make that decision. All I'm saying is I want everyone to feel as though they are beautiful. Because we've all had times in our lives where we felt like the ugly fat troll under the bridge, I'm sure. And, you know, as I mentioned, I was there. Overweight, really terrible acne. I just hated myself. So I had dark rings under my eyes. I would be hunched over like this, honestly. And it's taken me so long to really step into my beauty and my feminine and loving myself. Everyone can do it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about social media. And I would say if you're having a hard time, taking long social media breaks can literally be like washing your consciousness clean. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I used to be so good with it. Like I would do weeks off, I would do once a week. And now I'm just like, I've completely deactivated Instagram until I know in myself how I want to move forward with it. So yeah, I highly recommend that as an act of self-love. It's an act of self-love, saying I don't need to be socially engaged on this fake web of false personalities and false beauty. I don't need to be a part of that for a day, a week, a month, however long you choose. You can just be you in the real world. Of course, we have businesses. A lot of my business revolves around YouTube, so I'm still here. But I find it easier to disengage from YouTube because it's less of this just like, you know, fast food and speed dating vibes. Not about that. Anyway, and this takes me on to number 9 quite beautifully, which is body image concerns. When we are being shoveled by the media, so actors, actresses, social influencers, people are being paid to influence other people. That is how crazy the world has become. When they are, you know, morbidly underweight, you know, and it's just not healthy. And remember that TV puts pounds on you too. So morbidly underweight, you know, of a particular ethnicity, which is, we are actually getting better now in the world, but it's still rife, you know, and, you know, having certain facial features, all of these things, it can make, especially in young people, young men and women, make them feel like something is intrinsically wrong with them. But also for me, something that I found even more subtle is actually how our parents spoke to us when we were young. And I remember from a very young age jabs about, oh, you look a bit fat, or oh, you've put on weight, and oh my goodness, if only we were to be so aware of the power of the poison in those seemingly innocent statements on a young person's consciousness. Yeah, it did a lot. You know, I spent many years of my teenage and young adult life starving myself, throwing up, always counting calories, or being like, I can't eat that because I'm going to get fat. You know, it is not a battle that anyone should be going through. Because at the end of the day, if we are worshipping at the temple of divine wisdom within, we should be asking our hearts what would bring us the most joy and love and nourishment and divine bliss at any moment, not battling about whether we should eat a cake or not. It's all about balance. Okay, so I would say personally for me, body image concerns, they have played a part in my life. They have actually played a part in my life, because I'm always seeing a photo of me or video of me and being like, oh, I look fat. And that's awful. I mean, it's just a horrible thing to think about anyone, never mind about myself. So yes, I can relate to that. And I feel that anyone, no matter their shape, size, colour, background, ethnicity, any of the spectrum, sex, we are all going to have these deeply programmed thoughts about ourselves that aren't true, but we have to recognize them and keep saying, that's not mine, I don't choose that anymore. And instead saying, oh, I look beautiful. My body looks so good. A really good practice for any body image stuff is to look at yourself in the mirror wearing like underwear, or if you're really brave, completely naked, man, woman, all genders, in your underwear, and just standing looking at yourself with these affirmations ready and say, this is what a powerful woman looks like. I do this now. This is what a wealthy, successful woman looks like. Or you can say, this is the body of a beautiful divine goddess. And could feel very uncomfortable at first, but I promise you, after time, you'll start getting excited to look in the mirror, because you know that voice is going to be echoed back, and there is no thing greater than your own inner voice of approval. It beats any other external approval, even approval from your mum and dad, trust me. I just thought of that song, the Whitney Houston song. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love you'll ever know. I think that's the lyrics. Such a beautiful song. Rest in peace, beautiful Whitney Houston. Now you can see how my brain works when I'm doing client sessions. I'm channeling like images, songs, messages, feelings, memories. It's a lot. My beautiful rainbow brain. There we go, see? Okay, and then the final, number 10, top causes for a sense of lack of self-love. Major life setbacks. And I think this is one that is probably really overlooked. So this could be becoming bankrupt, like losing your job, your career that you've had for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It could be a divorce, the death of a family member, things like that, big major life events. And I would say that I have experienced that on a small scale. I did have an ex once who died in a car crash. We weren't so close and so deep that it affected me long term, but I can remember that the shock that it had on me at the time. But I would say the biggest one for me was when I was living in Indonesia, and basically I'd moved my whole life over there. I'd sold everything and lived there, and I was living there for almost 5 years. And then the lockdowns happened, and I had to make this decision. Do I stay here and just hope for the best, hope that I can keep earning money? I had a job, but the business had to close down. Or do I come back to England and be with my mum and make sure she's okay? And I chose the latter. I was divinely guided to come back to the UK. So I came back like after almost 5 years of following my dream of living on a tropical island, living what could not be described as more of the opposite lifestyle of living in London, where I'd come from. And moving back, it was a shock to the system, and I came back to nothing. I came back to no car. I didn't own a home, no clothes. Like, I'd sold everything. And I came back to the UK, and I had to move back in with my mum, temporarily, with no possessions, no job, like a little bit of savings to keep me going, which kept me going for like a year and a half. And it was scary. It was a total humbling moment, a total lack of identity, and this total moment of being like, the universe is capable of just pulling the rug from under our feet and just flipping our world upside down. And it's ended up being the best thing ever for me, because in these past 6 years has been when I have really built up my own business, and I've done a lot of deep work working with plant medicines, shamanic healing, doing so many retreats and women's circles and past life healings and so much. So it has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. But it definitely crushed me in some way, because I had to totally start again, totally let go of the person who I was living my life in Indonesia and start again. So it's scary. It was definitely scary. So wow. So that's a lot, that's a lot for us to work with. And this idea has just come to me now, for anyone who's interested in really going into this deeply, but taking your time with it, would be going through one of these, or working your way through one of these causes for lack of self-love once a month. So not once a month, one per month. So you can choose a date to start and be like, okay, so for the next 30 days, I'm going to work on childhood experiences and lack of support. And you can choose how you're going to focus on this over the month. You can set a day each week that maybe you're going to do a meditation that guides you there. A day to go deep on journaling memories, maybe a day to help accessing some of those emotions, a day to start rewriting some of those childhood stories, and so on and so forth, and keep unraveling, and then the next month move on to the next one. So this is like a year-long process that you can go through, and I would really recommend taking that amount of time to do this. Especially if you're starting out on this self-development or spiritual awareness journey, but even if you've been doing this for a long time, even I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to actually do this now. Maybe we should do it together as a challenge. If you'd like that, let me know in the chat. So go through the 10, so that's 10 months. And then what I would recommend at the end is going back and choosing the 2 that either you found the most challenging or that you felt you could go deeper into, and readdress those, which is most likely going to be the childhood experiences and perhaps trauma and abuse, because the more deeply we go into it, the more we unearth memories that we've actually hidden away. Our mind has acted as this protection for us and hidden away things that that could potentially cause us pain, stress, worry, anxiety. So our mind is this beautiful, beautiful software program that is just desperately trying to help us. And we can reprogram it. So for a final task that I want to do, and I'm going to do this in like quick speed time, but I invite you, if it resonates with you, to take some time to do it a bit more slowly. And what I'm going to do is like, and please don't think that I find this a joke or funny. This is serious stuff, but what I am going to do is sort of dramatize it and cartoonify, if you like, my story, and then I'm going to rewrite it into like a badass survival fantasy main character energy story. And something that I just wrote down before I do that I like, that resonated with me from when I was doing research is, so all of these top 10 causes of lack of self-love, these factors often intertwine to create a cycle where one feels unworthy of love, respect and care. And I love that word intertwine, because that's what it is. We've got ourselves all tangled up and interwoven into all of these little stories, and we've just got to start unwinding, start unraveling. Whew, taking a deep breath, shaking it out. Okay, so let's characterize my story and then rewrite it into a badass one. I really want to try and do this in like 2 sentences. Okay, so traumatized, fatherless, only child who was a drug addict and experienced sexual abuse as an early teen, who then felt like the ugly troll for many years and retreated back into her shell and became depressed, shy and anxious, and just felt like she could never be who she was born to be. Okay, so that is very, 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 very simplified. I would suggest going into more detail, and I actually feel that I will. I'm going to go into more detail of this, and what I'm trying to say is, so from all of these 10 points that I have bullet pointed with you, write a story from them so that you can actually recognize this story that your life is playing out from. And once you have that one story, then you can rewrite it into the story of your higher self, or of your main character energy that you want to be. So I'm going to say, let's rewrite this now. Strong, independent, lone wolf survives a childhood of feeling isolated, completely comes out on top of the other side of being treated in an abusive nature, manages to grow and flourish from the ugly duckling into the beautiful swan, and no longer cares about what other people think or what other people say, and follows her own heart as her North Star. Something like that. That was really hard doing that on the spot. Do you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to write these 2 stories, and I'll share it as another video. So it will be Self-Love Part 3, where I share my story with you. So it might be in a few weeks' time. And hopefully, if anyone feels inspired by this video, probably triggered. If you are feeling triggered, that is probably a sign that, you know, this is getting somewhere. We want to be presented with our fears so that we can face them, remember, so that no one else can use our fears against us. We become the hero and the warrior and the survivor of our own story. That's what I'm here for. I'm rooting for everyone. I'm like, yes, come on. We can do this. We can do this. So yeah, part 2 is going to be a lot more lighthearted, high vibrational. I will be sharing, so alongside this deep shadow work, rituals, actions, different like plants and essences and things that you can work with that support self-love, spells, affirmations, all of that juicy stuff is going to be in part 2. Let me know if you want me to create that by letting me know in the comments. And if you've made it this far, please just give yourself a hug. Take some breaths. Remind yourself that you love every part of yourself, darkness and all, and know that we all have a dark side. I can guarantee you that the individuals, both fantasy, so your fantasy characters who you love and adore, but also real life heroes, people who you admire, people who you really look at and you're like, I really like that person. They are someone I'd like to be. You know, people who we admire, I can guarantee you they have a dark story of survival. And they have chosen to use that as the fuel for their superpower. So I'm going to leave you with that. I love you so much. Please remember that if you enjoyed this video, to like, subscribe, share it if you choose, share it with a friend, do whatever you feel. And as always, I am here to support you on your journey. Sending you so much love. See you next time.